I got to tell you that we are in the throes of change in this country, and everybody knows it, and they know that it's bigger than we realize. I've been involved in governmental change before that's so drastic that it was frightening. I'm not talking about America, I'm talking about Vietnam. Long after I was injured, when I say long after, I shouldn't make that impression. That's years. It was a couple of years, but it wasn't that long. I went back to Vietnam before the communists took over the whole country, and I was in Vietnam when the country fell. I have a great memory of what happened as I ran for my life. You don't forget those things. And I ended up on an airline that took me around the world just to get me back to America. And on that flight around the world, I pondered what the future would be. I got back to America. My wife and my two babies were in their little Airstream trailer that we parked behind the churches I would speak in for that week. And we were in a church in Lufkin, Texas. And Pastor A.M. Freeze was pastor. He actually dedicated me to the Lord when I was a tiny baby. So he was a friend until he passed. One of the greatest men I ever knew. He and I were standing talking after the church service was over, and a number of people come to know Christ that night, and it was a celebration. It was a great night. I was still dealing with jet lag out of Vietnam, and I could hear the phone ringing in the office. Everybody's gone except Pastor and me, and we're standing in the foyer, and his office was at the other end of the auditorium. I could still hear it. I said, "Pastor, your phone's ringing." He said, "Oh, it's too late. People probably calling to see if someone was here, and they're already gone." I said, "But something tells me you need to answer that phone." He said, "Then I'll answer it." So he took off and hustled down there and answered the phone. He came back and said, "It's for you, Dave." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we answered." So I went and took it. It was a phone call that would change my life forever. As I held the phone in my trembling hand, I couldn't hold back the hot tears that streamed down my face as I was told by a reporter from Time magazine who was eyewitness to 70 young Vietnamese students that I had been ministering to the week before while I was still in Vietnam had just been executed in Da Nang by the communists. When he told me that, I lost it. I ended up slamming the phone down into its cradle. I rushed out, walked right past Pastor. I couldn't speak. My throat was choking me. I couldn't get a word out. Walked out to that little trailer in the back of that church where my wife and my two babies were sleeping. I tried to be quiet, but I couldn't help it. I shut the door and I stood in front of the full-length mirror in that little Airstream trailer. And I looked at my visage, my image. I grabbed my shirt and I literally ripped it off with both hands. And I stood naked from the waist up in front of that mirror. And the mutilation, and believe me, I'm mutilated. Burns don't make you look good. Not only did I only have one eye, one ear, and one nostril at that time, this was all blood red. No hair. I had artificial hair, as I still do, and I have artificial ear. But that, in those days, it was horrible. I had no nose then. My lips were gone. My eyelids were gone. I'm looking in that mirror at the rest of my mutilated body, and I just yelled it out to God. "Okay, tell me. Tell me that everything that I've gone through, all the pain, all the laughter, all the humiliation, all the hurt for my family, for my wife and those babies sleeping there. Tell me it's worth it now, God. Tell me that 70 dead Vietnamese students who believe the gospel, tell me it's worth it." You know, when we're at our worst, He is at His best. God spoke to me. I didn't hear voices, but I knew it was God. And He said to me, "Where are they now?" And it took me about 3 seconds to rationalize it. I understood. Well, they were refugees. They were living in squandering poverty, never knowing where the next bite of food would come from. Now they're with you, God. I said it out loud. I said, "Well, God, I know where they are now. They're with you." And the second question would solidify my life walk with Christ forever. He said, "Is that so bad?" And that's the day I realized I really, really do believe the gospel I preach. I believe it. I believe there's a better place than here. I believe there's a better place to go. I believe that Jesus is real. I believe heaven is real. And when we're in times of trouble like this in our country, isn't it good? Isn't it good to know eternity is not fouled up by political parties? Isn't it good to know that eternity, our walk with Christ forever, is not going to be based on a vote of the popular vote? Aren't you glad to know God is a king and he's not in an elected position where we rule him by a vote? No, he rules us and he loves us. And it's so good in a time of national concerns and fears and ups and downs. And isn't it good to know there's a rock we can stand on named Jesus? Is that so bad?